Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Networking Thursday. We're very glad you're with us this afternoon. It's July 27th, 2023. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just put them into the Zoom chat window. For those watching on Facebook, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please enter any questions you've got into the comment field. Also, for those on Zoom, this is all about networking. Let everybody know your contact information. You should connect with everybody else who's on the call today. Expand your connections because you never know who will be able to help you. So welcome, you're welcome to put in your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, LinkedIn address, comma, the title you're looking for, a couple positions, a couple companies that you're interested in, because you never know who can help you here on the call. So feel free to do that. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. 2012, I launched a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. We recently, in the last 2 weeks, relaunched Career USA with a little bit of a new look, a cleaner font, just some new features. So feel free to check out that website. The smart search, the search function works really, really well with it. So if you have any questions or you see any problems, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know so we can get those taken care of. I've also written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, or if you see me in person, I always have copies with me. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. This group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007. Tomorrow morning, we've got a very interesting program. I'll tell you about that at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. Your resume, your LinkedIn profile are not going to get you a job. What they will get you is a phone call. How well you practice your interviewing skills, that's what's going to get you your next great job. So if you'd like to get more information, feel free to reach out to dallaspickcrew.com, and all the details on what you can do and how you can sign up for an interview is right there at dallaspickcrew.com. All right, well, for every session of Networking Thursday, we've got a different speaker talking about networking. Networking is primarily the same thing. It's reaching out to other people, but everybody does it a little bit different way. So today our speaker is John Ernat. He's a CEO, plant manager, director of supply chain distribution. He was unemployed a couple times over the last 4 or 5 years. I asked him to put this presentation when he was last unemployed last year. So this is a recorded presentation. John is currently working, but let me just start the presentation up and we'll answer any questions you have at the end of the session.
Hello, everyone. My name is John. Like you, I'm in transition. This is the second time I've been in transition in a period of about 3 years. What I'm going to share today is something that I've learned. Being an avid student, always learning. It's always good to learn new skills and new topics. And today we're going to talk about networking. And if you look at a computer network, wired, all the different devices that are hooked up to it, they could be hooked up either wired through Cat5, Cat6, Ethernet, or wireless. And so many of you always want to learn about the detail. Well, wait a second. No one wants to know the details about a computer network today. You're here to learn about people networking. So let's just switch it over and let's really talk about what it takes to network and what does it mean to network. And so before we get started, we're going to talk about the what, the why, the where, and the how. And we're going to talk about details. This is stuff that I've learned, I've picked up. I'm not saying it's the only answer. It's just one method of networking. I encourage you to ask questions and make this an interactive discussion today. So what is networking? Really, it's the action of processing to exchange information and develop relationships with other people. And so that's really what it's about. It's gathering information and developing relationships. But what it's not is asking someone for a job. If you ask someone, walk up to someone and say, get me a job, they will probably run away screaming because that's too much pressure to put on someone. It's hard enough just doing their own job, but now putting the pressure of that on them will discourage them from helping you. So it's not about asking for a job, it's developing that relationship. So why is it important? It's important because it's the best way to get hired. Most people are hired by referrals, and many companies have a referral program where the person who's referring may get a monetary benefit. 70 to 85% of the jobs are found through networking. This is very important. This is the highest probability of you getting a job is by networking. Most jobs, up to 70%, are not even posted outside of the company. So this is very important because you're only looking at 30% of the jobs if you're looking at job boards and social media for postings. You're giving up the vast majority of up to 70% of those jobs that aren't even posted, and you need access to those jobs. Recruiters prefer a referral. Why? Because people who are referred typically are better candidates and stay longer. It's important that you be one of those referrals. And why is networking important? Because it removes isolation. The last thing you want to do is be behind your computer and not leave your home office or leave your home. Isolation is the enemy of those in transition. And so I want to reiterate that you can't be isolated. If you want to get a job, you have to network and get out. So where can I network? Really, where can I network? And the answer is everywhere. And I'm going to share some examples and we can talk about where's your favorite place to network. There's churches, synagogues, temples, schools, colleges, alumni groups. Are you involved with your alumni group? Do you have former colleagues, even with company alumni groups? Are you involved with groups that meet on a regular basis? Sporting events. I'll share, I was down in Texas, UT Texas in Austin last fall and attending an event, and I met another person who actually was working at one of my target companies. We connected, and now I have a chance to get more connections inside that organization. And it was just through sitting at a college apartment and then at a college bar and at a game and getting more information and finding out that we had mutual friends in connection. So it was a great way to network. If you're at a soccer game or at a dance practice or a dance recital, this is an opportunity to meet other people and find out where you can network. I didn't talk about the unemployment focus groups because really I want to focus on people who are employed, and we'll talk about that. In the grocery store or at the mall, are you have a chat with somebody, find out what their passions are, what they do, who they're connected with. I had a friend who was volunteering at a food kitchen. And during their conversation, the person she was volunteering with said, yeah, they're trouble finding someone who could do this, this, and that. They had somebody who could fill a position. And she turned to her and said, do you know anybody? And Paula said, yes, me. And she ended up getting a job after volunteering and just making a connection at a food kitchen. Helping out wherever you volunteer, whether it's at a homeless shelter, food bank, donating blood, whatever it is, it's an opportunity to meet other people. And let's not forget about home, family, or friends, neighbors. What does your neighbor do? What companies are they involved with? Who do they know? This is an opportunity when you're having a barbecue, having a discussion with your neighbor, talking with friends. There's a very famous person who's helped a lot of people in transition, was looking for a job, and he was in finance. And he finally went home and said, you know, I just can't find anybody who knows anybody at this company. And his wife said, I know the treasurer of that company. So it's amazing that your closest connection might be right next to you, but you have to have those discussions and let people know how they can help you. It's just sharing of that information. And again, on social media and LinkedIn, I'm going to talk about networking, and I'm going to talk about quality versus quantity. How many of you have gotten a request to link in with someone, right? Everybody's gotten those requests. Are they meaningful requests? Do you know this person? Did they put a note? And so I'll ask everybody, if someone came knocking at your front door or rang your doorbell, would you just open the door and let them come in without saying a word? Would you walk up to someone, stranger's home, and ring the doorbell and try opening the door? That might not be advisable, but that's really what's happening when people come and request a connection on LinkedIn without at least saying hello. Do not do that. I actually ignore people who do not have the courtesy to say, hey, John, I'd like to connect with you because. I can tell you that Jeff Morris and I connected on June 6th, 2019. We connected after meeting at the pit crew that he talked about. Why do I know that? Because I put that in my request for connection, saying, Jeff, it was great meeting you at the pit crew. I would like to further our conversations by connecting and furthering our networking and our connection. And he was able to accept my connection, and we've been in contact ever since. The thing is that's my trick for you, is when you make a connection on LinkedIn, put where you met that person. Put something down that they'll remember, like, thank you for giving me directions to the networking event on such and such a date, or thank you for sharing your information about your target company and having it in there. I've had multiple people say, hey, I see you know this person. Can you share a connection with me? And the first thing they'll ask is, how do you know this person? And I'll say, oh, I met him on June 7th, 2019 at the pit crew. And they said, wow, you have a great memory. I said, no, I write it down in my LinkedIn messaging so that I can remember, because I can't remember all that stuff. And when you start getting hundreds and thousands of connections, you won't be able to remember that either. It's just a good way to remember things, and it's always there. Either it's on your phone or your computer. You don't have to carry a notebook around and keep it there. Okay. How do I network? You have to learn to be an extrovert. Okay. We're going to go over each one of these steps. You have to be prepared. How to connect, either wired or wireless. You need to be helpful. And lastly, you need to have gratitude. You need to be thankful with follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. Okay, we're going to go into each one of these. So most of us fall into a category of an extrovert or introvert, not all 100%, but from the data that I've gathered, 25 to 40% of us are introverts. The other 60% refuse to answer the survey. So I don't know what that means, but majority of us seem to be introverted in some fashion. And what we are now in transition, in order to network, you have to be a salesperson, and a successful salesperson comes across as an extrovert. You don't have to be an extrovert. You just have to appear to be an extrovert. You have to prepare yourself to be ready. So if you're going to a networking meeting, you need to prepare, learn what type of event you're going to meet. If you're going to meet somebody individually for coffee or for lunch, prepare yourself when you have that meeting that you know about that person and what they have in common, and what information you want to gather from them. If you're nervous, practice with people you know, practice with people you're comfortable with. The other way of doing it is also, we talked about the pit crew, the practice interview team. That's another great way to network, but also to help bring that extrovert out. I already said that majority of the people are introverted. You know that if you're in a room, you're not the only one who's an introvert. So if you're at a social gathering and you don't want to go up to a group of 12 people that are standing there talking, I would suggest find someone who's standing by themselves or with another person and walk up to that small group. It's less intimidating and it's a great opportunity to start a conversation. Prepare your introduction. You have to be memorable. You have to have a 30-second introduction that's etched into your brain. Do you have a 30-second introduction that people will remember you by? I'm not saying mine's great, but this is mine. My name is John Ernat. I'm an operations leader delivering profitability by developing people, processes, and creating a positive culture. My passion for lean methodology has made me the #1 challenger of the status quo. And my colleagues say that I have a knack for connecting with people and inspiring them to do their very best. I'm looking for leadership roles in operations, manufacturing, and distribution. My name is John Ernat. Short, concise, and people remember certain aspects of that. You have to be confident to know that you have that. You don't want to stumble. You need to be confident and have it etched in your brain. The last thing you want to do in any type of networking situation is hand over your resume. It screams, find me a job. You do not want to do that, but you do want to share information that they'll remember you. So I recommend that you get a business card. My business card has my QR code for my LinkedIn profile. If you're at a big event where there's going to be gatherings of people, I would recommend that you wear a name tag. There's many templates on the Career DFW website on using a template. It has your name, your role, and information about you. I went to a networking event 3 years ago, and I walked into the restaurant where everybody was meeting, and the person who was sponsoring the event said, "Oh, you don't need a name tag." And I said, "Oh, that's fine. I'll just wear mine." I was the only one at the event that didn't have a name, or that had a name tag. And I had everybody come up to me going, "Oh, what's with the name tag?" People remembered me because I had a name tag. And if you're like me, if you be introduced to people, I'm a visual person. If I can see someone's name, I'll remember it a lot greater than just hearing it. So many of us are visual learners, and that's one way of doing it. Have a one-page bio or a marketing plan. I have mine. I'll share my example. I have 2 examples, same information, 2 different formats. And I put mine on cardstock. It's heavy, 80 weight cardstock that's not flimsy, and people remember it. And it's something that you can hand to people that tells them about you. And there's lots of information on it. I'll share mine later in the presentation. If you're going to meet someone, research them on LinkedIn. Find out about them. What school did they go to? What city do they live in? Do they have hobbies listed? What companies have they worked for? What's about their career path? All these will lead to questions that you can develop to have a meaningful conversation when you have that meeting, whether it's in a group or a private setting. Have your questions ready. Make them meaningful. And we'll go over some sample questions. And really, what are you trying to do? You're trying to achieve to gain information. And one of the most important things about communication is listening. Hear what they have to say, and just, this is not about you, it's about them. And more importantly, if you're meeting with someone who's employed, they're busy. They have a lot going on. You must respect their time. Calling someone to say, "Hey, can I get an hour of your time?" is probably impractical. My recommendation is, do you have time for a 10-minute phone call? Or could I meet you for a cup of coffee or lunch before work, or at, during your lunch break? Those things, just a 10-minute interaction, may be enough to start the conversation that will spur another conversation or another meeting down the road. We live in an interesting time. Many people are working remote. Many offices aren't open yet. And all of our networking meetings that we have on our job search, almost all of them are virtual. They're all wireless. They're not wired. Whether just like this meeting today, we're in a Zoom call. And find a way to be face-to-face. As the pandemic winds down and people are interacting more, I met someone for lunch yesterday. And it's easy to meet someone for lunch and have a restaurant as the weather gets nicer to have it outside, or meet for a cup of coffee. It's a quick, easy way to meet with other people. Have a set time. Like I said, make it short, make it concise, make it easy for the other person. Make it easy so that if you want to meet for a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee 2 minutes away from their office, even though it might mean that you might have to drive a half hour. This is important. It's showing the initiative that you're willing to go the distance to have the conversation. Jeff, do we need to stop for questions, or do we have any questions in the chat?
No questions. So keep going.
Okay. Feel free, if you have questions, raise your hand, put them in the chat, please. I've heard people talk about having literally thousands of connections on LinkedIn. And you call them and say, hey, can you introduce me to so-and-so? And their conversation is, well, I really don't know them. They just connected. And so you really want to have meaningful connections. If you try to have 10 connections a week, you're not going to have a good quality connection where you can get information and people remember you. That's one of the things that you want to have, is a relationship where they remember you. I made a connection last June, and that person connected with me yesterday to let me know that they have an opening at their company, and I was the person they were thinking of. So this is a great opportunity to make those connections and make yourself memorable. Being helpful. You can improve your relationships with your contacts by offering help. People will remember you if you are helpful. If you can give them a suggestion, give them an idea, offer solutions. That would be, if we go through some of the sample questions, what are some of the problems they're facing at their organization? What experiences can you share that might enlighten them or give them insight to solving their problems? It's not about you, it's about them. Everybody wants to share information about themselves and what they're going through. Listen and learn about them and see how you can help. People remember those who are helpful, those who make a difference and help others. The last thing that I have on the session was always send a thank you note. Whether it's a phone call, follow up with an email. If it's a face-to-face, I always recommend a handwritten note that's mailed. But it's always important that you follow up to you appreciate the time they spent with you and the information they shared. If they ask for something, you need to commit to it. So if they say, hey, will you call Bob? I'm going to recommend that you call Bob. He's another person at my company. Don't wait 2 weeks to call Bob. Call him, because you never know if he's going to go down the hall the next morning and say, hey, did John call you? And Bob says, John who? So you want to make sure that if you have any commitments that you're making or things that you want to do, please hold up to them. It'll show that you're helpful, but you also are accountable. Here is an example of my bio. This is what I would call a traditional, very straight format. It's got my picture, it has areas of expertise, talks a little bit about my achievements and successes, talks about some of the things that I've done strategically, some of my interpersonal skills, the companies that I've worked for, my education. So it's a very quick, easy way to see some of the different things that I've done. A lot of people will recommend putting target company on this page. This version that I'm sharing today does not, because I just listed I want to be in operations, manufacturing, and distribution. Well, that's too vague for most people. But if I told you that I'm looking for a job at Toyota or Carrier Enterprises or Glacier Beverage, now all of a sudden I've listed 3 companies that, oh, I know somebody at Toyota or I know somebody at Carrier. And now you've listed companies that my neighbor used to work there. So there's just opportunities that if you put that information in there, don't make it vague, make it very specific for people. You don't want to have them guess. And here's another version, and it's the same information, just in a different format. And it talks about the same things, but like I said, it's just an example. I can have this 10 different ways. And so this is just a different example of having the same information in a different format. And I tell people this version is like the Cowboys, the Yankees, and Notre Dame. What do the Cowboys, Yankees, and Notre Dame all have in common? Anyone?
Well connected.
Well, yes, but no one's neutral. You're never neutral about any of those. You always, you either love them or hate them, right? So that's why I have 2 versions. Like I said, it's like your resume. If you give your resume to 5 people, you'll get 10 opinions. So it's always important that you have flexibility. And especially if you want to be, if you're at a very traditional company, you'll want it to look like this. If you want a very outgoing and creative company where they want non-traditional thinking, then you have a format that it shows your creativity, okay? Here are some sample questions. I'm not gonna read all of them. What I do when I see these sample questions is I look at them and say, okay, well, how can I put them in my own words? Or how can I rephrase this to get the information that I'm seeking? And so, especially if I'm looking for a job that is, say, a manufacturing job where they're trying to grow. And so if I look, what's the most challenging part of your job? Well, what are some of the challenges you're facing with your growth strategy? And things like that. So this is just a few questions. Everybody's going to get this presentation at the end if you put your information in the chat window. So you'll have a copy of this presentation. It'll have all these questions. Here's several more. And again, these are thought starters. You don't walk in with these 16 questions into your networking meeting. Take 5 that you want to know that are yours, that are going to be the highest priority and give you the most information. And what I did is I left off the most important question. If you're meeting with someone to get connected, informational interview with someone at a company, what do you think is the most important question you should ask before you leave? Who else would you recommend that I talk to? So try to get at least 2 or 3 other names of individuals in the target company that you're seeking, because what you want to do is you want to be remembered. And if you've talked to 6 people in a company that they know that you've got operational leadership skills, and then they have a role that pops up that they're looking for your skill set, what better way to get a job is if 3 of those people go, hey, I remember that, I know John's got that expertise, or John's got that experience. And that's what you are seeking. You're trying to get remembered and trying to make connections so that when a job opening comes in, they know you're the person who can come in and help. I talked about being an extrovert. So these are some sample questions that come from the Career DFW website. I'll have a link later in the presentation to get the rest of the 30 questions that are out there. But again, if you're an introvert and you're walking into a room of unknown people, that's intimidating. So find someone who else is also intimidated and strike up a conversation. And again, these are just icebreakers, ideas for questions. Don't walk in with a list of type questions. Make them your own. Have them your own so that they make them sound like they're from you. The rest of the 30 questions are available at Career DFW, and the link is right there. Very, very helpful, and I would recommend that you look at those. So we're coming up to some parting thoughts and things that I'd like to share and to reemphasize this networking, the emphasis on networking. We're all in sales. Bring out that extrovert. If not, you're an introvert, just act like it. There's many people that I know when I talk to them find out that they're extremely extrovert or introverted, but they do a great job of acting like they're an extrovert. And they work on being able to have conversations with other people. Prepare your introduction, make it memorable. I'll have a conversation with people and they say, well, what have you done? And I said, well, I've made caskets, I've made air conditioners, and I've made wire and cabinets in my career. And what do those all have in common? People, processes, and problems, and I help solve problems. And so that's just one way of capturing, making it memorable, because most people don't know somebody who made a casket, being a casket maker. It's not something you run into every day, but it's one way of being remembered. Connect, 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 whether that's on the phone, via Zoom call, or more importantly, seeing if you can meet for a cup of coffee or grab a quick lunch. You've got to go out and meet people. And the goal is not to meet 20 people in a week. It's to make meaningful relationships that will help further your advancement in getting connected into a job. One thing that I found very challenging is this transition is very much like a roller coaster. We go through extreme highs and extreme lows where I know people that don't even want to get out of bed. And so one thing that I find very fulfilling is trying to help others. And whether that's volunteering by donating blood or volunteering at the pit crew and helping with being a panel interviewer, there's opportunities to help other people, whether it's sharing information like this on a Zoom call or giving advice with people who are looking at companies that you used to work at. One thing that I found very, very interesting is when you find yourself in transition, people that you've known for 10, 15, 20 years say, I can help you. And if they've never been in transition, I'm going to tell you, they can't help you. They don't know how, they don't have the skill set to help you. And what you'll find is total strangers that you've met yesterday will be more helpful than people that you've known for 20 years. And that is the power of networking and helping other people, is you'll get to know them, and eventually you helping them will help you. And last but not least, you need to be grateful. You need to thank the people that help you, whether it's a simple text saying thank you, or a formal thank you note that you write and mail in to that person. It's very, very important that you build those relationships and continue those relationships. One thing that I've found is if you've met somebody and you haven't talked to them in a while, reach out to them, see how they're doing, see if things have happened in their company. Have things changed? And that's what happened to me this week. I reached out to somebody that I talked to over a year ago, or not a year ago, 9 months ago, and all of a sudden they're having growth and they're making changes and they have an opportunity. So hopefully that will come into a further discussion and something that I can be very proud of. But you know, it's about making those connections and being helpful and keeping yourself in front of them. People will remember you if you send a thank you card and they keep you in mind. LinkedIn does a great job of reminding you of whose birthday, if they put that information. Sending a birthday card to somebody or a LinkedIn message or a text just to wish them a happy birthday, everybody loves a note on their birthday. So that is all that I had. And I thank you for your time. And I'll open it up for questions.
Rusty, you had a question. You want to unmute your mic and ask it?
You bet. Thanks so much, John. Appreciate all the great information. My question was, is there a delicate way to confirm if your network contact has actually followed up on the things that they said they were going to do? For example, they committed that they were going to connect you with person X, but you never heard anything. You either never saw an email where you were copied on, or you never heard back from that actual new connection.
So if people don't know how to make a connection, this is a recommendation. If they're on LinkedIn and they have a recommendation on LinkedIn, I would say do a joint meeting or a message that has everybody participating where it says, Jeff, I'd like to introduce Rusty Wright. Rusty, this is Jeff. I know Jeff from the pit crew and helping out in DFW. I've known Rusty for 3 years through various connections and network meetings. Yeah, I think it'd be beneficial if you two meet and get to know each other, right? So you have an opportunity that all of a sudden you have feedback, and that same thing can happen in an email. And that's what I'd recommend is if it's in an email, include me in the email so that I can continue the conversation. And normally, once I establish that initial conversation that would say, hey, John, thank you for connecting me with Jeff. I'll send you a private email so we can further this conversation. And so that's typically how I encourage it so that I get immediate feedback and I'm involved with the initial introduction.
And I know that happened for me the other day. I had somebody wanted a connection request, somebody I was connected to. I connected them, and then you pop on LinkedIn and here's 12 more messages the two of them have had between each other. And so I know they've connected, which, it's nice to see that. I mean, they didn't have to reach out to me and tell me, thank you for the connection, but I could see that, they were going to have a conversation at X time, worked out very well. Anybody else have a question?
I have a question, Miss Linda.
I did put the presentation in the chat box. So there's the networking wired or unwired or wireless. All right, that's our recorded presentation that we have. Linda, you had a question. Go ahead, ask, and let me see what I can answer for you.
On LinkedIn, when recruiters try to connect with you, you just kind of, I've just been ignoring them. Some of them I don't know who they are.
Yeah, and what's your question?
So is that, I mean, we talked about you should have connections with people, then you have these recruiters reaching out for a position or, opportunities, but that opportunity isn't for you. So
okay,
not connecting with them should be fine, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to connect with them, because it's not going to hurt anything. But one of the things about LinkedIn is that if you don't respond to messages that you get, you will get pushed down in the ratings. So whenever anybody reaches out to you, always respond, even if you say thanks, but I'm not interested.
Okay.
If you have somebody else you can suggest who can take the job, hey, why don't you try connecting with this person? They may be a better fit. So always respond, even if you're not interested in doing that, because you want to build those connections. That's just very, very important. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Dan, I know you had a question. It said towards the very beginning, I understand you don't hand over your resume, but would you hand over your bio? Yes, I highly recommend. To me, a resume just screams, hire me, hire me, help me, I'm looking for a job. But when you send a bio out, that's an informational piece. That's a sales piece about who you are, what you do, and how you can help somebody. You're not getting into all the details that would be on your resume, but it's a higher level thing. For everybody on the call today, I did in the Zoom chat window put down this copy of this presentation, and I also put in a sample bio, 2 different bios that are out there. So those are just some samples. One of them looks a lot like what John was using, but it just sort of gives you an idea. Also, if you're interested, there is a great book called Be Sharp. This is the 2nd edition. This is by Minna Brown and Paul Asanoff. The nice thing about this book is you get the 2nd edition of the book. It has about 30 different bios in the back of it, and it talks all about how you can make, how you make a bio better and how you can do something with it. So I really consider it's like 16, 17 bucks on Amazon. You can also get it on Kindle if you like to, but I think the handwritten version, to have that version in your hand is worth having. Any other questions? Let's see here. I saw somebody put something in the chat. Let me go down. Yeah, Paris says, I always respond to recruiters, even if it's not my field. That is correct, because LinkedIn keeps track. One of the things that a recruiter can do with, if you join us for LinkedIn Tuesdays when Kurt Vondermatter is speaking, he shows us the recruiting package that he pays big bucks for every year. And one of the options he has is people who are more likely to respond and people who are open to work. So when he's first putting in a search for somebody, if he's searching for a CEO, he'll put in CEO, he'll put in a city, maybe a couple keywords like CPG for consumer packaging goods. And then he'll put in people who are most likely to respond and people who are open to work. And he'll start his funnel that big. And then as he needs to, he can shrink it down. If he goes, oh, I don't have enough candidates, he can open to those people who are maybe, not open to work or people who are unconsidered. So you always want to be active. You want to show LinkedIn that you're always going to respond, because it will make a difference to recruiters. Listen, a recruiter wants to pick up the phone and call you. That's their first thing they want to do. The second thing they do is they will email your personal email account. The last thing a recruiter wants to do is use a LinkedIn InMail, because they don't know if you'll ever see it or not. So make sure on your LinkedIn profile that you have a phone number, that you have a LinkedIn address or an email address, and you can't just put it in your contact information, because if you put it, it's great to have in your contact information. That's great for 1st-degree connections, but a 2nd or 3rd-degree connection can't see that. So make sure it's in your about section also. One more thing, if you don't want to put your personal cell phone on LinkedIn, that's fine. Get a Google Voice number, have the Google Voice number relay over to your cell phone, and that way you're not sharing your personal cell phone. Any other questions anybody has? All right, well, let me share a few more slides and we will get out of here today. Let's see here if I can do this. There we go. So LinkedIn, Career FW, Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Please come join us tomorrow morning. A really interesting presentation, 9:30 in the morning Central Time, how social media presence can be used in hiring, or maybe not used in hiring. So your social presence is out there. What may be good and what may be bad could affect if you even get a phone call. So Carol McCullough will be with us tomorrow. She's got a PhD. She's done this presentation many times. She lives up in the New Jersey area, and we'll be back to give this presentation. The presentation will not be recorded. So if you want to watch it, you do need to watch it live tomorrow. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, come join us in person. As John talked about, it's important for you to get out and meet people in person. For those people who join us on Zoom, you can't really network. You don't have time to talk to people before and after the session because I don't stay on the session that long. But when you come in person, you can talk to people beforehand. After the meeting, we'll actually have a little open forum until we go for lunch tomorrow. So if you live in the DFW area, please just come join us. Please come join us in person. You know, put on your pants, get out of the house, come see somebody. It's worth doing. The details, if you like to have the details of where they meet, we meet up in Plano. Please just send me an information or an email, and I'll be glad to get the information to you. Next Tuesday, for LinkedIn Tuesday, our LinkedIn presenter is going to be Ruth Lipsky. She's going to talk about how to drive recruiters to your LinkedIn profile. Next Wednesday, the practice interview team will be meeting in person only. So they'll be meeting at Christ United Methodist Church, 3101 Coit Road. It's at the corner of Parker and Coit. Please come join us in person. I know we have right now at least one person who's going to be interviewed. So you can come watch somebody be interviewed and sort of see how that goes. You learn as much watching somebody else being interviewed by going, ooh, I like what they said. Oop, I don't want to make sure I do that. Or, you'll learn a lot. So come join us in person next Wednesday. And then next Thursday, being the first Thursday of the month, it's hard to believe the first Thursday of August already. We have an expert speaker who will talk about effective resumes, primarily resumes for an ATS system, but just some good common practices for all resumes. If you'd like to join the Career DFW and Career USA LinkedIn groups, you're welcome to join one or both. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join the Career DFW group. I will say that today, just this morning, we passed 14,900 members. So we currently have 14,901. So I'm looking for 99 more people to join so we can hit 15,000. This session has been recorded. You will be able to see it on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. It'll be up on the YouTube channel. YouTube takes a couple hours for it to get up there, but it will be there later this afternoon. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. I have over 520 videos up there, but if you click on playlist, you'll see one of 7 different playlists. Every video I goes into a different playlist. There is just click on networking. Don't click on networking, but underneath where you see that red circle, view full playlist. And what will happen is here's a list of all the different speakers and dates and when they talk, and you can go back and watch any one of those presentations at your convenience. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, join the Career USA mailing list. Just scan the QR code right there on the right-hand corner, or you can send an email to Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io. When you scan that QR code, it will generate an email. Just hit send. You don't have to put any information in the, you don't have to put any information into the email. Just send a blank email. That will work. Please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We survive on donations. We have no full or part-time employees. All of our speakers are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 14.5 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you for joining us, and everybody have a great Thursday afternoon, and hopefully you'll join us tomorrow morning for a great presentation.